Maril, what was it like as you guys were crafting a scene like that? And Caitriona, what was it like to not only do that scene, but then obviously I'm sure you recorded the voiceover separately. So what was that like for you as an actor to go to that place? Because it is it's a scary moment, because we know Claire is self-medicating, but you know, there's dangers in this.
I don't know, you know, when we were talking about this, all the writers, you know, we break the season together, and we talked about this. We talked about this with Caitriona and Maril and even experts about PTSD. And we know it's not necessarily how it played out in the book, but the thing that's different with the show and the books is we work on a different timeline. So a book, you know, comes out every 5 years or so, and you know, there's 1,000 pages, and you can deal with things on a different timeline, and we just don't have that luxury. So, you know, we knew coming off of what happened in season 5 that we weren't just going to shy away from what happened to Claire, and we wanted to kind of dig into it and see what happened. And this is, you know, what you saw in the first episode is the start. It's not the story, it's the start of the story. And I think we have to watch it. There's initial reactions to everything. It's like, wait, Claire's not someone that would maybe do that. And we had that initial reaction too. But you go, well, let the story play out, and then you might have a different take. And I think that is what's different about, you know, getting it all in one moment rather than seeing a whole season. This is just a chapter in the story, and we have to let it play out. And I think when we talked about it, we decided we really want to dig into this and not shy away from Claire's trauma, because, you know, PTSD comes up in different ways with different people, and we've already played this for Claire in a different way than the books when we did the World War II flashback, and you know, I love that section. I don't know. I mean, you know, what do you think about
Yeah, no, when you first mentioned this, and when it was sort of, you know, you guys were suggesting it, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. You know, it's not something that I would have thought, but I think I've also been saying to you, you know, you guys on some level since season 1, I'm like, really? This doesn't break her? Okay. And this doesn't break her either? Okay.
Well, I think that's one of the conversations we had, is that, you know, strong women, yes, strong person, not just strong women, but strong person. It's not the fact that you fall, it's the fact that how do you get back up?
Yeah.
And where's your support system, and who's your support system? And do you do it alone, or do you try to do it alone, and you protect your family? And I think this is one way that Claire tries to protect her family in a way, and just kind of suffer through herself, because she knows the trauma that everybody else has gone through.
Exactly, and you know, you never want to make somebody Teflon, right? And I think one of the things that has served Claire so well, and is why she is such an amazing doctor, is that she's always been able to compartmentalize. And it's that thing of something happens, she locks it away and she puts it in a box. But there's only so many times, or there's only so long that you can do that. And trauma, you know, anything like that, if you don't deal with it, it's going to rear its head at some point. And I think there's a cumulative trauma for Claire in some way, but also this is an event that has rocked her to her core. And she can't use these coping mechanisms that she's used prior. It just doesn't serve her anymore. And it's also that thing of, Claire is not somebody who seeks help easily. She's usually the person that people come to for help. But she's not somebody who's very good at introspection. She's not somebody that's very good at like asking somebody for help. And so when she's in pain, she tries to suppress it. And people have said, well, Claire would understand the dangers of ether. Of course she does. But in that moment when you're in pain, you're gonna reach for the thing that is closest to you. And that's what is closest to Claire in that moment. And it's not a conscious decision. She's not making this decision from the intelligent part of her brain. It's the emotional part of her brain. And, you know, that scene when she wakes up in the middle of the night, you know, the noise is so deafening in her head. The pain is so strong. She's, you know, experimented with ether before it was an experience, it was a sensation that she'd never felt, this complete quietness or this complete peace for a certain amount of time. And when she woke in that state, that's all she wanted, just peace. I think when you're in that state of agitation. And I think it's, as Matt said, this is a beginning of a chapter, it's the beginning of a story. And I'm grateful to the writers for the way that they have laid this out. I think we're going to go on a journey with Claire that's very important. I think it's important to see how she deals with this, how it affects her, but also how eventually she will overcome, or not overcome, because I think you pass through rather than overcome, I think, which is important.
That's such a beautiful explanation, so thank you for that. Before we wrap up, I would just love Maril and Matt to answer this, because it was such a hard, grueling season given the predicament and everything. What are you most proud of? Either a storyline that's upcoming or just how everything was handled behind the scenes? What gives you the greatest pride when you look back on season 6?
I mean, I would say kind of how the cast but how the cast and the production, production dealt with COVID. I mean, unfortunately, neither Matt nor I were in Scotland this year. Oh, you were in Scotland. That's true. Sorry, you went to Scotland at the end. But it was a tough season because we didn't really have the representation we normally have there. Barbara, who was one of our producers, was able to be there and did a tremendous job. It was really tough having one person there. But I think the cast did such an amazing job with a really difficult, obviously Caitriona was pregnant and hardest worker ever. The rest of the cast dealing with COVID, the mask, also our production. I mean, once again, it was really hard, and the way they tested everyone and tried to keep everyone safe, and in a challenging world that we'd never dealt with before. And to have a season that we're all so proud of and such a roller coaster ride, and in fact, in some ways, having it just be 8 episodes made it such an amazing ride in a way that maybe if we'd gone 12 would be different.
Should we just do next season?
Exactly, we all do 8 episodes instead of 16. I'm just so proud of this cast and our production. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think, for the first part of the season, just being on Zoom on all the meetings and watching what everybody was going through, and then watching the cuts and the dailies of, just what everybody was going through, and being in meetings and talking about COVID. We spent so much time talking about and protecting people, but these 4 certainly were on the front lines along with our entire crew. So every single day, Maril and I certainly, and everybody that was here, we were just so not just proud that we were part of it, but just amazed that they could go out and do it, and that we're bringing you this season in a timely fashion. I know people are talking about Outlander being 2 years, and if we had it our way, if we really did, and we wanted to be safe, and we wanted to do the show that is Outlander, where we could just have masks off, you're talking about a 4-year Outlander. So I'm proud that it's only 2 years, and a lot of people endured a lot of things to bring this to the screen. So just being a part of that is amazing.
I'm just gonna piggyback on that, and you've already kind of said it, but props to our crew. Our crew is one of the hardest working. They, the conditions that we work in, us actors, we get pampered. Let's face it. I mean, Scotland pampered, but which is, you get a little tiny heater, but you still, our crew is really, I think we just have to give them so much respect, and they worked so hard. When we started shooting, it was pre-vaccines. We were testing as much as we could. We had a lab on our site, which was amazing. That was one of the most amazing things that production did. But it was still incredibly difficult. They had families that were in lockdown. A lot of them, their kids weren't at school. They were trying to manage, a life under lockdown, but still came to work, still showed up, still gave their all. So, I just think we have to give them a huge nod of respect.